we're going to visit the beautiful, magical, unusual city of New Orleans. A city where almost never sleeps. I did find out that one place closed for a few hours. I thought everybody stayed there all the time. That's Pat O'Brien's. We're going to visit there, among other places. We're going to see the historical part of the city. We're going to see the French market. We're going to see all the way through the French Quarter, the old part of the city primarily. The new part isn't so terribly interesting. And I want you to come with me as we enjoy this wonderful experience in New Orleans. When we finish looking at the city, then we're going to experience one of New Orleans' great events of the year. I think it's been going on for 3 years, and if this year was any indication, it's got plenty more years to go. It's called the New Orleans Wine and Food Experience. People come in from 30 states, I think, this last time. 30 states and then some. And they eat and they drink for about 3 days and have a glorious time.
Give me a chance to get a thing turned on.
The legendary Café du Monde, where cafe au lait is said to have been invented. It's got chicory and all kinds of wonderful stuff. It's delicious. You can see how many people are there. And then there are musicians in front. Let's take a walk over, shall we? And hear what the musicians are playing. Well, here are the musicians playing real New Orleans jazz. And we're enjoying it. See, this is what New Orleans is all about. It's fun. This is the place where you get the best cafe au lait that New Orleans is so famous for, and the beignets that are like powdered sugar donuts, only like no donuts I've ever eaten before. They're just great. They're in squares. You can see the activity here. Coffee is $1, even today. The beignets are $1. It's a great bargain, and everybody flocks here. It's just wonderful. This is St. Anne Street, a pedestrian mall that runs alongside of Jackson Square. Jackson Square was called the Plaza de Armas when the Spanish had this town. You know, it's been French and Spanish, and of course now U.S., and all these influences are here. Wonderful iron lace buildings. People, everybody ends up here at Jackson Square for tarot and palm readings and mimes and music, and everything goes on here long into the night. You're now in the legendary Toujaq's, Toujaque, but pronounced in New Orleans, Toujaq. G-U-E, not Q-U-E. I don't know why I was thinking of other French. And it has been around for about 100 years, and I don't think a thing has changed. They serve wonderful food, and it goes on and on. It's a platoon system of waiters. You leave a tip for an individual waiter, and they all share it. But the food is simply great. I'll have to see what's on the menu now if you'll wait just a minute.
You gonna ask me?
Yes. Tell me what's on the menu here at Toujaq's. I've been here years ago, but this is the first time in several years, and I want to know if it's still the same menu.
It's basically the same. We have our jambalaya, which is a normal dish every day. The boiled beef brisket, which is their house specialty, and served with potatoes, tomato horseradish sauce. It's been around the restaurant for 136 years. That's a traditional dish. And we do a special every day. It's normally a seafood. Today we're doing the trout, this pan-fried trout with a little lemon butter sauce, and that changes every day. Seafood changes every day. Brisket or beef or jambalaya stays. We also have a bowl of gumbo with a salad.
Little tiny meals. You see, they're afraid you're going to drop dead of starvation right here on the premises, so they really feed you up, and you get the whole thing when you order lunch or dinner.
Right. With lunch you get soup and salad, and if you do order the special, you get dessert and coffee with it.
That's great. Now, you know, Toujaq, T-U-G-A-G-U-E in New Orleans. We're at the side of the square where all the artists hang out. And as you can see, they're busy doing family portraits and individual portraits. All down this side of the square. There are people who make their living, and all day long they're busy. It's really quite a scene. Here's another view of Jackson Square with the activity that goes on, in addition to which this wonderful cathedral, the St. Louis Cathedral, that is a landmark building of New Orleans, with all the hotels, really a lovely skyline in the background. This is a two-man submarine that was found in the bottom of Lake Pontchartrain after the Civil War. Can you imagine they had that kind of technology that many years ago, 1860-something? We think of submarines as something brand new, but here it is, a two-man submarine from Lake Pontchartrain.
Okay.
This is the part of St. Anne where cars are allowed to come, but we're going right into the heart of the quarter. You can see how lively it is. Flags of all kinds, Italy and Canada and Great Britain, as well as the United States, of course. This is another kind of art, another square in New Orleans. As you can see, there is a most wasted bit of space here where somebody isn't doing something creative. This is very different from little pictures of people and families. There's another of New Orleans street musicians, and here this woman is a wonderful clarinetist, playing just for tips, and people are buying the tapes as well, which makes it just very colorful here. On Royal Street, or as they used to call it, Calle Royale, which means Royale means Royal Street in Spanish. Just walking into one of these perfectly beautiful courtyards in New Orleans, you see the European influence here, both Spanish and French. Lovely fountains, wonderful trees, sea grape trees, magnolia trees, great big plants of all kinds. It's very tropical here and extremely beautiful.
Okay.
Here is Brennan's. I think everybody in the world may have heard about Brennan's because of brunch. They are the originators of brunch. They have eggs any way you can possibly think of them. Eggs hussard with 2 sauces, eggs in every way, and it's a very romantic and beautiful place. Perhaps we'll go inside later on, but for right now, let's just take a peek at this and go on our way up Royal Street a little further. Rue Royale, Calle Royale, and now in English, just Royal Street. This finds us in the Henry Stern Gallery on Royal Street, which is one of the stops on the New Orleans wine and food experience. But it is also, when it's not serving wine, it's one of the finest galleries on Royal Street, which is in the heart of the French Quarter, and most filled with gorgeous antique shops, but this is one that I spied on my way down and thought was exquisite. Now let's talk about the piece that we're standing in front of. I'm here with Jean-Pierre Schweitzer, who is the buyer for this, and he's going to talk about this piece that's behind us from the Alsace of France.
This piece is just made around Strasbourg in the east of France, at the border of Germany. And this is called a bontière, an armoire with one door, painted has all the furniture in that part of France is painted on pine. This specific one is probably were made for a church.
And it's about 1800?
About 1800, yes.
Absolutely beautiful. There's another piece right over here that's 1830, and that was a wedding gift.
And the name of the bride.
The name of the bride was?
Christina Nell.
Nell. But when you contrast this with the kind of work that's being done in the United States about the same time, you're seeing some similarities to the Pennsylvania Dutch. Absolutely.
All that part were doing the Dutch, the Austrian, the French, the German were doing the same type of painting, painted furniture, but the motif was different.
Well, it's absolutely lovely, and it's lovely to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for coming.
Here is a typical lace it's called Iron Lace building at the corner of St. Anne Street in New Orleans, just outside of the French Market. We're going into the French Market in just a minute. This is a long view of the old French Market, which is now no longer really a market unless you call a shopping mall a market. But this is where all the trading took place in the old days of New Orleans. The traders landed here at the river, we'll see the river in a minute, and set up shop here, and it was the center, the hub of commercial activity. And as I said, now it's taken over, and as usual, it very frequently happens with these things, turned into a charming shopping mall with lots of t-shirts and pralines, as they call them down here, and other good things. The closest feeling of what the market must have been like, we'll go into the part that is now literally a farmer's market, and from there to a flea market. At least they tell me there's a flea market there. I haven't seen it. Let's walk across the street and see what we find. One of the fundamentals of New Orleans cooking is garlic, and here you can see where people come to get it. Not the chefs, because obviously they have their own other sources, but these are garlic strings for people to take home, just so that they remember that when they were in New Orleans, they had lots of wonderful, flavorful food, and some of it depends on the flavor of garlic. Some of the other flavors that New Orleans food depends on are the hot sauces, the seasoning blends, and they have them here in great profusion. This stand at the farmer's market in the French Market is devoted entirely to these wonderful seasonings that make New Orleans food just what they are. There is no end to the kind of seasonings they make and mixes that they have here in New Orleans. They have their fish fries, their chicken fries, their dirty rice mix, and the wonderful herbed olive oil, which seems to be in everything. Pickled onions. Tony Chartres, his seasoning mixes are legendary. I use them myself. In my hand, I have gator on a stick. Looks like a plain old hot dog to me, but it isn't. It's a spicy sausage made of alligator meat. And I'm taking this at the fish market, the Louisiana fish market, right here in the farmer's market, or the French market, of New Orleans. It's a trip. I wish I could bring you all a bite, but it's spicy stuff. Standing in the Courtyard Grill with Michael Udo, chef at this wonderful restaurant, who has just given us a tour of the French Market, kind of right across the street from this Courtyard Grill on Decatur Street. How long you been here, Mike?
4 years now.
4 years. How did you decide on the theme of the restaurant?
Well, my grandparents had a wholesale grocer on this block in the early 1900s, which turned out to be Progresso Foods. And when I saw this place, it was just time to bring it back to their old neighborhood.
Back to the old neighborhood. Well, I'll tell you what. It is outrageous food. That chocolate bread pudding, if nothing else, everything was delicious, but the chocolate bread pudding was absolutely outrageous.
Thank you very much. We try to make it outrageous.
Here we are at the mighty Mississippi, and there's a paddle wheeler. The Natchez is the name of it, and it plies the river, takes people up and down pretty much as they do on the Delaware, but this has riverboat gambling. This town has already taken advantage of that money maker. There's not much that they don't, but it is a beautiful tourist town. Everything there is for any tourist who wants to do. There's music in the background. As you can hear, music is part of New Orleans. Very colorful guy, and he's standing right here at his perch at the end of the river. We're standing here overlooking Jackson Square, which was the Plaza de Armas when the Spanish had this town. In Spanish and French as before, but this is really a startling view. I think they call it, this is the Kodak vantage point, where the crepe myrtle, beautiful cathedral, St. Louis Cathedral in the background, and all of the beauties of the square. This is Dumaine Street in the quarter, not nearly as touristy as Royal or Bourbon, but very typical with the balconies overhanging. This is what makes New Orleans so famous. Everybody falls in love with this kind of architecture. When New Orleans was the capital of the Spanish province of Louisiana, they called this street Calle del Maine. I wonder if they meant that state way up there. Nevertheless, it doesn't look anything like the old community of Maine, M-A-I-N-E, north of Massachusetts and so forth. It has its own distinctive quality. We're in the Voodoo Museum in the heart of the French Quarter of New Orleans, on Dumaine Street, right near the corner of Royal. Royal being that very busy and beautiful street with all kinds of antique shops. But here you disappear into the world of voodoo. About 15% of the people in New Orleans still practice voodoo as an ancient African religion that came through the Caribbean, where people had major problems practicing their religion, and so they adapted it to their local areas and have brought it to New Orleans, where it's still very much a part of daily. On the way to Pat O'Brien's, we'll stop and just take a peek at Preservation Hall. This is where all the famous jazz musicians play. Louis Armstrong on up. Everybody has played here at Preservation Hall, and they still play New Orleans jazz. They don't play any of this modern stuff. I was wrong. Pat O'Brien's does indeed close. It closes from 5 in the morning until 10 in the morning. So they get a chance to close up. And it's not long after 10 right now, and there are a couple of people starting the day. I'm going to start the day with my own mint julep. What a way to start. Give me New Orleans. I love it. Go. in the bar of the legendary Pat O'Brien's, and it's filled with beer steins. And I will tell you, everybody raises a stein to dear old Maine, no, to dear old New Orleans, to Louisiana. Look at this place. It's great fun. Let's have a mint julep and start the day right. Muddles.
Keep it a secret.
Keep it a secret? No way. All the folks on cable channel 66 are going to know your secret.
That's right.
What's your name?
My name's Pet. Just right there, my name's Pet.
Great, Pat.
P-E-T.
Pet, pet, pet. Pet, and all right. Make sure you ask for it.
Yeah, no.
Haven't had a chance to drink it yet, but I will.
There we go.
Great. Thank you. Here we go, folks. First mint julep of the day. It's about 10:30 in the morning. Oh boy, is that good. We are at Brennan's, in the garden at Brennan's. We're not here for brunch on Sunday. This is just a group of people, rather famous people from the New Orleans area, who are here for the New Orleans wine and food experience. And let's go talk to them for a minute. Let's talk to these people at this table. Here are the Bells, I think. Warren.
Right. How are you?
Warren has been on
WVUE television is where I was a news anchor for quite a few years. I'm now pursuing a communications consulting firm with my wife, and we're just here to enjoy because the past few years the New Orleans Food and Wine Experience has been occurring, and I was busy working on the air, so this year I'm available and enjoying every minute of it.
What fun. And would you like to say something?
Hi, I'm Rebecca Bell and having a good time here.
Good. That's the idea. New Orleans is a place to have a good time. And one of the things that's helping people have a good time, in addition, is this wonderful Domaine Carneros?
Well, actually, I'm with Carneros Creek Winery.
Carneros Creek Winery.
Yes.
Oh, that's another one, isn't it?
Right.
Carneros Creek Winery that makes Taittinger champagne in California.
Right. The Carneros region, where Domaine Carneros and our winery is located, is about an hour north of San Francisco, just off the San Francisco Bay. And Domaine Carneros is the Taittinger winery specializing in sparkling wine. And our winery, Carneros Creek, also works with Pinot Noir and Chardonnay grapes with still wine production.
And I hope that's as good as what we're drinking today.
All the wines of Carneros are great.
And this gentleman is Mr. New Orleans.
Mr. New Orleans, that's right. We're all here to pass a good time, yes, yeah. Like Warren says, he's got a good excuse to be here. He's not working. And I'm the distributor for Carneros Creek Wines here in New Orleans.
Well, you see, there are all ways to have a good time. And at this beautiful Brennan's, when you're here for Sunday brunch, well, this is sort of in the afternoon, when you're here, every single available space is full of
You know, Emil, I think the reason why I make fabulous wine is because my hobby is food, and I enjoy food. I think that's why I understand to make great wine. And I told him, I said, that's pretty interesting because I think that I do food and cook, and my hobby's wine. Basically, so I have a little bit of carrot, as I said, some onion, maybe a little pepper, but some spice, and I've got just some crushed chili. So I'm going to add a little crushed chili with that cream and broth and lemongrass and crab as a dumpling. Hey, this is all right. So, then this dumpling, oh yeah. And this is a little coconut milk, because I've got some spice now, which is a contrast to that wine. But you probably want to contrast or either complement the wine. So We're going to add one more component to complement it, which is a little coconut milk to give it a little sweetness.
So these aren't going to be, we're serving, it might be scaring some of y'all to try to eat this today, but we're serving half crabs, which we cleaned this morning. They were live this morning. And we're also going to be serving it with some jumbo lump crab. What is that? On woks and all this other kind of stuff. But just the rolled steel wok seems to work the best. And if you cure it, it'll develop a nice non-stick finish. Now this one I'm sure is going to stick today, but hopefully not. So he's going to start with a little bit of Wesson oil. And we hope the smoke detectors don't go off because he's actually going to have to take this down to the hotel kitchen and finish the dish because the hotel was worried that we were going to create too much smoke and have a problem. And the whole sprinkler system would go off in this. Then I would leave town for about a month.
The grand tasting at the New Orleans Wine and Food Experience 1994. As you can see, the whole world is here. And their motto is Laissez les bons temps rouler, let the good times roll. And boy, it looks as if everyone is having a good time tasting, 150 wines and a lot of different kinds of foods. I think 80 restaurants are here. Now you've had a chance to see some of what makes New Orleans great. It's too bad you couldn't taste some of it because it surely was wonderful. Emerald Lagasse's food was great, and the food from the Penguin Club was great. The food from almost every restaurant that participated. There's one called Upper Line that you didn't get a chance to see or hear about, but it is knockout. It's where the locals go. And I hope you'll want to visit New Orleans yourself one of these days, and I'd surely like to join you when you go.